And I opened my eyes in my mask in the darkness with my flashlight, and I saw, like right in front of me, this huge eyeball.
Shocking new revelations have just emerged, and they first filtered into the public on Joe Rogan's podcast. He revealed breathtaking discoveries the Navy made on covert deep-sea missions, secrets they've kept classified for years. We're talking about shapes in the dark, lights that move with purpose, and ancient ruins whispering secrets. Could something down there be watching us? Let's dive in. The abyss that stares back. It starts with silence, not the peaceful kind, the kind that presses against your helmet, making every breath sound too loud. You're drifting in water so dark you can't see your own hand, and yet you can feel eyes on you. This is where Navy divers go. Not the postcard oceans, but places that seem to breathe, places most of us wouldn't survive a minute. Joe Rogan's heard the stories. We're not talking about secondhand gossip, but from people who've been there, people who don't scare easily.
Well, you've done underwater exploration as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Astronauts, scientists, SEALs, and what they've seen down there isn't in any marine biology textbook. Forget colorful reefs or schools of bright fish. This is the deep, miles below, where sunlight never reaches, and the pressure could crush steel. Divers move through that darkness on missions nobody talks about. Gear strapped into their backs, every sound amplified in the silence. Down here, even a single bubble feels like it's being watched. Rogan calls the ocean stranger than Mars, a massive, shifting wilderness we've barely touched. Scientists say more of the moon is mapped than the sea floor, and yet, entire hidden worlds exist down there. Some glow, some move in ways that seem impossible, and some it watches. When Rogan presses his guests, people like astronaut Garrett Reisman, who's lived underwater for weeks, or explorer Forrest Galante.
Well, you've done underwater exploration as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I lived for 2 weeks in the bottom of the sea.
Who's seen animals that look like they belong on another planet. They circle back to the same unnerving truth. Something is down there that doesn't want to be found. One story, in particular, stopped Rogan mid-sentence. A dive that should have been routine until it wasn't. And that's where this gets strange. Hammerhead horror in the deep lab. It's one thing to know you're being watched. It's another to feel it alone, 60 feet under, sealed inside a steel capsule with nothing but glass between you and the dark. Garrett Reisman peeked out the window and froze. Something was there. It was not moving. It's not like it's leaving either. It was just sailing in the murk, its shape slowly sharpening into a wide, flat head and two black, unblinking eyes, locked right on him.
I look up and I look out the window and I see a 6-foot hammerhead shark right out the window. And we have a guy in the water.
It was a hammerhead shark, easily 6 feet long, staring straight at him. It wasn't swimming by, it was just hanging there in the murk, as if it was deciding whether to make a move. When he told Joe Rogan about it on his podcast, Rogan's jaw hit the floor. Reisman, a Navy-trained diver and NASA vet, was part of Nemo 5, a mission where he and his crew lived in the Aquarius habitat, a submarine-like lab off Key Largo, Florida, held together by air pressure pushing the ocean back like a flipped-over cup in a bathtub. He further explained that they were sealed inside. While there was no quick escape, if you shot to the surface, the nitrogen in your blood would kill you.
And then as you do it gradually, the nitrogen slowly comes out of your blood.
Down here, the ocean wasn't just outside. It was pressing in, reminding you it owned the place. The hammerhead appeared in the middle of a medical experiment. Reisman had been scanning a crewmate's kidney, while doctors in Houston watched the feed with a delay. Then, a dark shape. A sudden movement, that unmistakable T-shaped head filling the window.
And we're doing this telemedicine experiment, so there are these docs in Houston looking at the screen, but there's a delay, and I'm supposed to find her kidney.
He blurted a loud curse that startled the mission control team, who thought a medical disaster had just unfolded. "Nope," he yelled. It was just a shark at the window. The water outside was thick, almost black. That shark's eyes caught what little light there was, two unblinking black mirrors. In the lab, you could hear every creak of the structure, every hiss of air systems working to keep the ocean out. There was no comfort in knowing you had Navy-level training. A predator doesn't care about your resume. Rogan leaned in, fascinated. You think it could have broken in? Reisman admitted the thought crossed his mind. You can't fight the ocean. You can only respect it and hope it respects you back. The hammerhead eventually drifted off, but the message it left was clear. Down here, you're just another animal in the food chain. And as Reisman told Rogan, his next dive didn't just test his nerves, it nearly stopped his heart. The grouper's saucer-sized nightmare.
One night I was taking a dump. This is a true story.
That heartstopper came one night when Reisman had to leave the safety of the habitat for, well, nature's call. Down there, you can't just flush and forget. Anything that's dirty stays with you. The only option is a short, eerie swim to a tiny outpost nicknamed the gazebo, a bubble of air hovering in the middle of the dark Atlantic. He slips into the water wearing only swim trunks, holding his breath, the habitat lights fading behind him until there's nothing but black in every direction. There were no tanks, no backup, just him and the weight of the ocean. Every kick forward feels like moving deeper into another world, one where anything could be watching. Inside the gazebo, the air is stale and silent, the surface just inches above his head. He starts his business, but he's not alone. Out of the gloom, small fish dart in, swarming like they've been waiting for the signal. They nip, they peck, little jolts of pain in the worst possible place, forcing him to swat them away with his fins. Then comes the real nightmare. As he dips back under, with his mask on and a flashlight beam slicing through the black, it lands right in front of him. An eye, perfectly round, the size of a dinner plate, unblinking and watching. It belongs to a Goliath grouper.
And I opened my eyes in my mask in the darkness with my flashlight, and I saw right in front of me this huge eyeball.
A slab of muscle and scales that can weigh more than a man. It doesn't move fast. It doesn't have to. It just swims there, close enough that he can see the texture of its skin, close enough to imagine that cavernous mouth swallowing him whole. Reisman bolts, kicking hard toward the habitat's moon pool, adrenaline pounding louder than his own splashes. He bursts through the surface, gasping, shouting, sending his crewmates into panic. They think it's a shark. He can barely get the words out. Giant fish. Rogan's doubled over, laughing, but also shaking his head like he can't believe it. Could it eat you? Maybe not. But down there, in that darkness, it's not a question you want answered firsthand. And if a grouper could shake an astronaut, you have to wonder what's lurking in the places even the Navy hesitates to go to. They say the ocean keeps its biggest secrets where the light can't follow. Down there, every shadow feels heavier, and some of them move. Joe Rogan tells of a dive so far beneath the surface that even the most seasoned Navy SEALs stopped talking.
One of the things that people need to understand is that most of the exploration of the ocean is really essentially around the outside edges.
The kind of silence that only comes when you see something you're not ready to understand. If a fish could rattle an astronaut like Reisman, imagine what it takes to freeze a Navy SEAL. This wasn't training. It wasn't even a standard mission. It was the kind of operation where nobody shares details, and afterward, the paperwork vanishes like it never happened. The team drops into a trench so deep that steel bends under the pressure. Down there, your light barely scratches the dark, and your breathing sounds like it's the only thing alive. That's when they saw it. At first, it was just a shape in the thick mist, big, slow. Then, it moved, fast, too fast. It swept past their lights in a blur, glowing just enough to make your brain stutter. What did I just see? Not a shark? Not a whale? The motion was too smooth, too deliberate, like it was pacing them.
Maritime Services vessels immediately began tracking the whale, enforcing a 100-meter exclusion zone.
Watching. Rogan leans in, voice low, almost daring you to guess. He won't call it a sea monster. He won't say aliens. But you can hear the gears turning, secret military craft. Some species we've never named, Something from the deepest part of the ocean that doesn't want to be found. The divers just hung there in the cold, watching it disappear into the dark. When they surfaced, there were no debriefs, no questions, only orders to shut up and hand over their logs. Every record gone. Rogan laughs, but it's the nervous kind. Man, what's so terrifying they gotta hide it? The truth? Nobody outside that dive team knows. But if something that size is gliding through waters we can't reach, it's probably not alone. Hit the like button if you're with us, because whatever's down there in the dark, we've only just scratched the surface. Orpheus and the Hadal zones glow. Some places in the ocean feel less like water and more like another world. Down there, sound dies, light disappears, and even the bravest divers sense they've crossed a line they shouldn't. Joe Rogan recalls one mission where the darkness wasn't empty at all. It felt like something was waiting, and it made itself known in a way no one could explain.
These underwater crafts, like this enormous one that apparently was near this oil rig.
Whatever that shadow was, it rattled the Navy enough to bring in NASA. Not for space, but for the kind of ocean where space training starts, the Hadal Zone. Rogan says this is where the story turns from strange to almost unbelievable. They teamed up with Orpheus, NASA's deep-diving robot, built to survive the pressure miles below the surface. Pressure so intense it can crush steel like it's cardboard paper. This wasn't a tourist trip. Orpheus was sent to crawl through the Mariana Trench, a black maze of cliffs and canyons no human could survive. The feed flickered to life.
The world's oceans don't go any deeper than the Pacific's Mariana Trench.
At first, it was nothing but endless darkness. Then, there it was. A faint glow pulsing in the distance. Too steady to be random, too sharp to be natural. The robot crept closer, its cameras locking onto shapes that seemed made. Edges where there shouldn't be edges. Patterns that looked deliberate and almost architectural. Navy divers floated in stillness, watching the screen. The lights weren't still. They shifted. They moved with purpose. Slow, deliberate, like they were aware of the cameras. Rogan's voice in the retelling is electric. Man, that's not coral. That's not a rock. That's something. And then, the twist. NASA wasn't just there for Earth's mysteries. This was a trial run. If Orpheus could handle the crushing grip of the Hadal Zone, it could handle the icy ocean of Europa, Jupiter's moon, a place scientists believe might hold alien life. Rogan grins, half joking, but dead serious. If this is what we find here, what's waiting for us out there? But back in the trench, this wasn't theory anymore. The lights didn't just glow, they reacted. The darker the divers went, the closer the glows seemed to draw, like they were curious, or warning them to leave. The tentacle freak that floored Rogan. It takes a lot to shut Joe Rogan up, but this did it. This is not a rumor, nor a grainy clip. This was Navy footage, shot in a trench so deep it swallows light and crushes steel. Forrest Galante, the wildlife biologist sitting across from Rogan, leaned in as he told it. The divers were on a standard deep-sea run, cameras rolling, when something drifted into view. It wasn't a fish or a squid. It was something bigger, something with too many limbs that didn't agree on how to move.
With the sound of the ocean like lapping against the dome.
Picture this. You're tethered to a rig in the Hadal Zone, your lights barely holding back the dark. Then, from the edge of the beam, a shape slides in, long, with curling appendages, part legs, part tentacles, bending in ways that make your stomach tighten. The glow around it is faint, almost teasing, just enough to show you it's close and massive. Galante's voice, normally steady, cracked a little. He called the movement unnatural, like each limb was making its own decision. Rogan's reaction, half laughing, half serious. That's not from here, man. That's something else. The creature dwarfed the diver's sled with its shadow swallowing the frame. Then it became static. The feed flickered, the lights dimmed, and the water around them felt emptied, like it was pulling the power straight out of the ocean. The protocol was instant. Log it, lock it, and never speak of it outside the mission. Rogan couldn't stop circling back to that. If this was real, and the footage says it was, then maybe the scariest part isn't what they saw. But what else could be out there waiting to be seen? The bloop's bone-chilling roar. If that tentacled giant wasn't enough to haunt the divers' dreams, what came next didn't just rattle their nerves, it shook their bones. Some sounds don't just reach your ears, they crawl inside you. Far out in the Pacific, something let out a noise so deep, so impossibly loud, it traveled for thousands of miles underwater. At first, scientists called it the bloop, a harmless name for something that felt anything but harmless. In 1997, U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration deep-sea microphones picked up a sound now infamous as the bloop, a low, thundering roar that rolled through the Pacific, louder than anything nature was supposed to make. Could it be whales? They will be too small to make such noise. Ships? Not even close. But Rogan's guest, a Navy insider, suggested it might be something darker. He spoke of a classified dive where SEALs heard that same deep hum, not through speakers, but in their chests, vibrating through their gear. Down in the trench, where light dies and pressure crushes, the water itself seems to growl. Imagine being tethered to a submersible, your beam cutting just a few feet ahead. When it hits, a deep, rolling roar that makes your oxygen tanks hum like tuning forks. It's not coming from any direction you can point to. It's everywhere, swallowing you whole. The divers scanned the deep, finding nothing but drifting silt. Yet the sound kept coming, rising and falling like something breathing. Rogan leaned in, voice low. Man, that's not a whale. That's not a sub. What the hell is that? Some say it's tied to hydrothermal vents, those boiling cracks on the sea floor that shelter alien-looking life in total darkness. Others whisper about something massive guarding them. But in 2005, NOAA suggested the sound originated from ice quakes, specifically icebergs cracking and breaking away from glaciers in Antarctica. Some suggested it was the call of a colossal, undiscovered marine creature. Monster Wiki also points to the possibility of a smaller creature with an efficient sound-generating mechanism. The bloop sound faded the way a predator slips back into the dark, quiet, but not gone.
Due to how loud the bloop sounded, it's an inconclusive theory pretty much.
And if that wasn't a creature, then what machine down there roars like a living thing? If the bloop's roar made the divers feel hunted, what happened next put one SEAL face to face with whatever might be doing the hunting. Drown-proofing's dark clutch. They call it training, but it feels more like a dare. You're bound at the wrists and ankles, dropped into deep water, and told to keep breathing. No panic, no mistakes, just survival.
The closed-circuit system that we use as combat divers, it does not give any bubbles, so there's no trace that you're actually under the surface.
It's already the kind of test that leaves even the toughest rattled. But this time, something else was in the water. Navy SEALs train like this in drown-proofing, a brutal test that pushes them to the edge. And Joe Rogan's podcast lit up with a story where one diver felt a grip no human could explain. Drown-proofing is already a nightmare. Your hands and feet are bound, then you're dropped into deep water and told to survive. It's meant to break the weak, forge the strong, and leave no room for panic. But in one story, Rogan couldn't let go of. A routine drill turned into something else entirely. Picture this. You're sinking into cold, black water, wrists tied behind you, ankles lashed tight. Every kick is heavy, like swimming through wet concrete. The surface feels miles away. Then, in the stillness, something brushes your leg. This is not a rope, not even a teammate. It is a deliberate, slow, slick glide. Then, you turn, but there's nothing, only the dark pressing in. Just at the edge of your vision, a shape moves, too big for a fish, too quick for the current. Rogan leans in, half whisper, half disbelief. Man, Man, what grabbed him? That's some horror movie stuff. The SEAL trainee shot upward, lungs burning, swearing something tugged his leg before letting go.
The most challenging obstacle that I faced since starting the course was the one-man confidence exam.
Students must cover.
Instructors saw nothing but ripples on the surface. They assured him it was his mind playing tricks on him. The logs stayed clean. But among the divers, the whispers spread. This wasn't the first time. Share this with a friend who'd want to know what else could be lurking in the dark, waiting for its turn. The ghost ship that vanished. Imagine a Navy ship disappearing without a single distress call, swallowed whole by the Atlantic, and the divers sent to find it returning with stories they can't tell. That's the shadow hanging over the USS Cyclops, a massive Navy collier that vanished in 1918 with 309 people on board. There was no wreckage, and for the bodies, it was just gone.
People who
Drowned.
Because that's, I think, what happens.
It happened inside the Bermuda Triangle, that strange stretch of ocean where compasses lose their minds, radios dissolve into static, and entire vessels seem to step off the map.
This experiment solves a long-standing mystery.
We've actually proven the existence.
According to one of Rogan's guests, a man with serious Navy connections, there was a more recent, secretive SEAL mission sent to scour those waters. Whatever they found never made it to the public record. Picture being one of those divers. You drop into water the color of black coffee, where visibility is measured in feet, not yards. Your compass spins like it's in a bar fight, and your floodlights barely cut through the swirling silt. You're looking for Cyclops, but all you see are scattered pieces, rusted metal, a lone anchor, and then something you weren't trained for. Faint glows flicker in the distance. You're sure it's not fish or debris, but they look like shapes, moving in ways that don't make sense, slipping between beams of light as if they're choosing not to be seen. The closer you swim, the colder the water feels, and the heavier the silence gets in your helmet. Rogan can't resist leaning into it with curiosity. Man, are those aliens? Some kind of vortex?
You're trying to find different people that you can connect this being to.
Yeah.
And what is it saying to you while you're...
Or is the ocean just eating ships? Then he laughs about tractor beams, but you can tell it's not all a joke to him. The Navy sealed the logs. The divers never spoke on record, and Cyclops remains the Triangle's most infamous prize. But those who went down there say they felt it, that pushback from the ocean, like something in the dark didn't want them staying long. And if the sea can hide a ship that size, what else could it be keeping out of sight? Zombie sponges, feeding on the past. If the Arctic was hiding something that could reach out and grab you, it was also hiding things that could outlive you by centuries, and feed on the dead to do it. The mission to Langseth Ridge, a frozen volcano buried beneath the North Pole, was meant to be routine mapping. What it picked up wasn't sharks or squid. They were giant, pale sponges, some older than the United States itself, clinging to ancient fossil beds and quietly eating their way through the remains. This is like dropping under Arctic ice, where the cold slices through your suit like broken glass. Your beam of light cuts into the deep, and the seafloor emerges, a graveyard of long-dead volcanoes. And there they are, lumpy, alien-like masses, slowly flexing, almost breathing, anchored in place for hundreds of years, each one feeding on creatures that died before your family name even existed. A marine biologist on Rogan's show called them zombie sponges, explaining how they partner with microbes to digest fossilized worm tubes in a place so starved for food it makes a desert look abundant. For the SEALs, the mission wasn't about life at all. It was about testing submersibles in brutal conditions. But the sponges stole the spotlight. The footage revealed a thriving ecosystem in pure total darkness, rewriting what scientists thought the Arctic seafloor could sustain. And if these strange, silent feeders could survive for centuries in the coldest, most desolate waters on Earth. What else could be down there, waiting? Antarctica's alien lakes of life. If the Arctic could keep the dead alive for centuries, Antarctica was hiding something even stranger. A lake sealed off from the world for millions of years. Lake Vostok sits buried beneath over 2 miles of solid ice. There is no sunlight or seasons, just a dark, untouched chamber.
And you just see darkness, black.
Where time never moved forward. When Navy SEALs finally reached it, they weren't stepping into just cold water. They were stepping into an alien world. Drilling through ice thicker than city skyscrapers, they dropped into a pitch-black expanse where every ripple felt like it came from something watching. Their lights cut through the darkness, revealing shapes that shouldn't exist here. Ice fish so translucent you could see their hearts beating, their blood laced with natural antifreeze. Massive crabs crept along the floor, their claws catching glints of light as they prowled around methane vents like something out of deep space. Rogan's guest, a marine scientist, explained that this hidden ecosystem doesn't survive on sunlight at all. It feeds on chemicals like methane, just like life forms scientists believe might exist on Europa, Jupiter's frozen moon. That comparison made Rogan lean back and say, "Man, if this is Earth, what's out there?" This was an exploration and also a test of human endurance. SEALs were using deep ocean gear in a place where one wrong move meant you were done. The water was pristine, yet it carried an unsettling presence, as if it had been waiting patiently for visitors. If a lake trapped under Antarctic ice can harbor creatures that rewrite our definition of life, what else is sealed away in the cold, just waiting to be found? The sunken city that whispers secrets. Sometimes the ocean hides more than wrecks and bones. Sometimes it hides entire worlds. The Navy won't talk about this one, not in public, not on record, but the gossip says they swam through streets that haven't felt sunlight in thousands of years. Walls still standing, doorways still open, and something about the place felt like it was waiting. Off the coast of Laconia, Greece, lies Pavlopetra, the oldest submerged city we've ever found, with streets, tombs, and walls older than the pyramids, sitting just 20 feet under the Mediterranean. On Rogan's show, a Navy insider hinted at a covert mission, not a tourist dive, but a full-scale mapping operation. Whatever they saw, the details were locked away the moment they surfaced. The city looks abandoned, but it doesn't feel empty. The markings carved into the stone are still visible, with patterns that don't match any known culture. The edges catch the light like they're made to be seen. Even there in the dark, Rogan can't hide his excitement, calling it Atlantis vibes and wondering out loud what these people knew. Could it be lost tech, ancient rituals, maybe something stranger? He half jokes about aliens, but you can tell he means it when he says the Navy is keeping more than history to themselves. Officially, it was just a gear test. Unofficially, those carvings sparked questions no one in uniform wanted to answer. The mission logs were sealed. The divers stayed silent. And that's the thing about Pavlopetra. On the surface, it's archaeology, but underneath, it's a locked door. And if that door ever opens, it might not just rewrite history. It could reveal what else the ocean's been hiding all this time. Subscribe so you don't miss what might surface next. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.